You bump into a chair, and you say sorry. To the chair, someone steps on your foot, and the word that comes out of your mouth first is still sorry. You get interrupted mid-sentence, you apologize for talking, someone cancels on you last minute, you apologize for being disappointed. And the worst part? You know it's happening. You hear it coming out of your mouth, and somewhere in the back of your head, a small voice goes, "Why are you apologizing right now?" And you think about it for the rest of the day. If you just felt something shift in your chest watching this, stay. Because what's been called a bad habit, a weakness, or just being too nice has a much deeper name. And once you hear it, you're going to understand yourself in a way you haven't before. Here's what it actually feels like to live inside this. You walk into a room and you already feel like you're taking up too much space, like your presence alone requires an explanation. So you make yourself smaller. You talk softer, sit tighter, ask for less. And when you do ask for something, you wrap it in so many apologies that by the time the request comes out, it sounds like a question you're not sure you're allowed to ask. You rehearse texts before you send them. Not to be clear, but to make sure you haven't offended anyone. You replay conversations after they end, scanning for the moment you might have said the wrong thing, been too much or not enough. And disagreement? Disagreement feels like danger. Even when someone is factually wrong, even when you are the one being wronged, something in your body goes tense, your throat tightens, and the path of least resistance is always the apology. The exhausting part isn't even the apologies. It's the constant internal monitoring. The full-time job of making sure everyone around you is okay, even at the cost of whether you are okay. Here's what's actually happening, and it has nothing to do with weakness. Psychologists call it the fawn response, and it's one of 4 survival responses the human nervous system uses under threat. You've heard of fight and flight. Fawn is lesser known, but just as powerful. It's the response that says, if I can make this person comfortable, I will be safe. Apologizing compulsively isn't a personality flaw. It's a nervous system that learned, very early, very thoroughly, that keeping the peace was the way to stay out of harm. That smoothing things over was smarter than speaking up. That being agreeable was safer than being honest. It's not weakness, it's an old form of intelligence doing a job it was trained to do. Research also shows that chronic apologizers tend to score high in empathy and social awareness. They feel the emotional temperature of a room before anyone else does. They register tension, discomfort, and displeasure in other people almost instantly. And the apology is their fastest tool to neutralize it. It's not people-pleasing. It's emotional firefighting at a speed most people can't even perceive. So why does this pattern form in the first place? In most cases, it starts in an environment where someone else's emotional state felt like your responsibility. A parent whose mood was unpredictable. A household where conflict, even small conflict, had real consequences. A dynamic where love felt conditional on how little trouble you caused. In that environment, a child learns. Monitor everything. Adjust constantly. Apologize before they get upset, because after is too late. That strategy works when you're small, and the stakes are survival. The problem is the brain doesn't file it under childhood strategy. It files it under how the world works. And then it runs that same program at 25, at 35, at 45, in jobs, in friendships, in relationships, long after the original threat is gone. The apology stopped being a word. It became a reflex. But here's where we have to be honest. Because there's a cost that doesn't get talked about. Every unnecessary apology quietly communicates something. To others, and to yourself. It says, my needs matter less. My feelings are an inconvenience. My presence requires justification. And over time, you start to believe it. Not because it's true, but because you've said it. In some form. 1,000 times. And relationships built on constant appeasement are exhausting for everyone. Because people don't actually want a version of you that has been edited down for their comfort. They want you. And when you shrink yourself into someone endlessly agreeable, the people who would have loved the real version never even get to meet them. There's also a strange irony here. Chronic apologizers often attract people who become too comfortable with their compliance, who stop seeing the apologies as kindness And start expecting them as a given. You were never the problem. But this pattern has been protecting you from a danger that, in most of your life right now, no longer exists. Knowing this changes things because you can't unlearn a survival response through willpower. You can't just stop apologizing any more than you can tell your heart to stop racing when something startles you. What you can do is start noticing the difference between an apology that reflects genuine accountability and an apology that's really just a flinch, a preemptive shield, a bid to be allowed to exist without friction. Real accountability is powerful. I was wrong. I'm sorry. That's integrity. That matters. But sorry for existing near you. That's not humility. That's a habit built on a fear that was never yours to carry. The people who learn to channel their empathy without erasing themselves, those are the most quietly formidable people in any room. They feel everything, and they still choose to take up space. Not because they stopped caring about others, but because they finally put themselves on the list of people worth caring about. You don't need to stop being kind. You just need to stop paying for it with yourself. If this felt uncomfortably accurate, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You were adaptive. And adaptation can always be redirected. Subscribe. We will keep bringing you such videos and keep on breaking down the psychology behind these personalities. And comment below. What's the most unnecessary thing you've ever apologized for? I genuinely want to know. Because I promise. It's more universal than you think. You were never too much. You just learned too early that being less felt safer. That lesson is done now.